The media is trying their very best to paint a positive picture of rainbows and sunshine surrounding Star Wars The Acolyte, and they are damage controlling to the max for Disney, but it's not working because while the critic scores are very high for this series on Rotten Tomatoes, the average audience score has tanked to a 20% and everybody on social media is roasting them. I have a few things to show off, but if you enjoy the content I create, follow me on social media, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube membership. So, of course, I have already talked about the dreaded episode 3 in another video, but if you're wondering why the scores have tanked so low, this right here is the reason why. They have proven time and time again that they are not hiring people who are passionate about this franchise and actually want to do a good job. They're simply hiring activists who want to shove a narrative into their products. Of course, Kathleen Kennedy wants the Force is female to really be a thing, but now the Acolyte has made a massive retcon to Star Wars lore, revealing lesbian space witches created life from the Force, which of course, there has never been anything this ridiculous in Star Wars. There has been, life created by the Force, but never by lesbian space witches. This is a Bounding into Comics article. It says, in sadly but unsurprisingly delivering on previous whispers, the third episode of The Acolyte has made an absolutely massive, ostensibly identity politics motivated change to one of the franchise's most pivotal pieces of original pre-Disney lore. It says in current Star Wars canon, the power to create life via the direct manipulation of the Force is considered a near impossible feat even for the most storied of its users. So much so, in fact, that prior to the Acolyte's third episode, there had only ever been one individual who was reportedly able to pull it off, the infamous Sith Lord Darth Plagueis. Did you ever hear of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, recalled Palpatine to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith? He was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. He had such knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying, and yes, apparently, this is no longer canon. Of course, the pre-House of Mouse Star Wars Legends era, it was established that not only he had actually been able to create life from the Force, but that he was directly responsible for the immaculate conception of Anakin Skywalker himself. And of course, this has been toyed with a lot. Some people believe this is true. Some people don't think this is true. Some people think it's like a dramatization of Anakin's story. Either way, though, it doesn't matter because in The Acolyte, they made it seem like such an easy thing to do, and we're not talking about like storied Force users, we're just simply talking about a group of lesbian space witches, which is just absurd. Of course, we already knew that Star Wars was dead and that Star Wars was really at the point of not being savable, but now this is the final nail in the coffin for the franchise. And to be honest, we should have all given up on Star Wars a long time ago. I know so many people have, but there were some of us who were really hoping that, oh, maybe it was just this one or two projects in a row that were going to be really bad, and maybe they'd actually listen to our feedback, but they have proven that they are not interested in doing that. They're just creating content for themselves and modern audiences, which of course don't actually exist. Those sensitive snowflakes on social media they're trying to appeal to don't care about Star Wars and will never purchase their products. And of course, people like Grace Randolph are doing their very best to damage control, saying things like, I will say I think it's going to be very hard for Disney to cast upcoming Star Wars projects because this level of hate just isn't worth it, even for up-and-coming actors. Look at the actor from Squid Game did a great job in The Acolyte, and for what the problem is that you can have really great actors who are part of really bad projects. It's not like he did the writing, he simply acted. And if you don't have a bunch of fantastic actors and a pretty good story, it's going to be criticized, and we can see just by the story that there was no acting performance that was going to save this dumpster fire. And of course, going to these scores over on Rotten Tomatoes, everybody in the audience seems to hate it because the critics are praising, giving it an 85%, super generous. But the average audience score is a measly 20%. And when episodes 1 and 2 initially released, because they launched together, it was sitting at around like a 34, dropped to a 32. But after episode 3 released, which again, they had said was going to be the most controversial, it tanked to a 20. Now, of course, they're all going to be half stars and 1 stars. I see absolutely nobody praising this series besides for maybe 1 or 2 of the acting performances. Other than that, the costumes are mediocre, the fight sequences are okay, which just isn't acceptable for Star Wars. And then we've got the awful writing. Worst kind of trash, shame on anyone and everyone involved. Episode 3 was so bad it made me take time out of my day, create an account here, and post a review. Aberrant garbage, sucks, power of 1, the power of poo, the power of pee, pretty dumb. I'm out of this disaster. Absolute garbage storytelling. Well done. You've destroyed it. Yeah, at this point, I don't think there's any way for them to revive Star Wars. I've said this before. I used to be a massive Star Wars fan. I used to play the MMO, and Knights of the Old Republic is one of my favorite video games of all time. I love Jedi Fallen Order. I like Jedi Survivor. I liked The Mandalorian when it started. I was a fan of Rogue One. I thought The Force Awakens was a decent basis for a trilogy, but everything else they've done has just been mediocre or like this, absolute garbage. And it is sad to see people like Kathleen Kennedy ruining a beloved franchise and hiring people like Leslie Headland, Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant, to do projects when really she had only ever created 1 or 2 decent things in the past. And it's clear that everybody else who was affiliated with this project had absolutely no love or no care or no passion for Star Wars, and that is why we're getting project after project like this, and they are losing viewers. We already know that the Acolyte had performed worse than Ahsoka, and the global minutes viewed less than Ahsoka's US premiere viewership. So even the viewership numbers initially performed worse than Ahsoka on Disney Plus. So it seems like Acolyte is going to lose them a heck of a lot of money and also going to push even more fans away from the franchise. So it will be interesting to see what other garbage they shove into this show with the rest of the episodes, and if any actors or producers come out and call us ists and phobes simply for criticizing this series. Only time will tell, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.